Hi, welcome back to Quinamopod Creations tutorial videos. Today I'm going to do some wrapped bracelets. I have some small aluminum bracelets, blanks, size 0, 9mm beading thread, size 13 beading needles, and brain tan leather with some size 13 cut beads. I'm just going to wrap the bracelet blank. So we're going to cover the blank with the leather. So I'm going to cut. I cut enough so that it wraps around the blank and just fits snug on there. And cut a strip long enough to cover the whole blank. And wrap that leather around. I'm going to catch on the one side of the leather so that my knot will be on the inside. I'll be seeing. And now go to the other side and catch that leather on the other side. And that will bring it together in the center. And then I just go back and forth, just catching the end of that, under the leather. And it's going to create that seam right down the middle. I'm going to snip off the end, round it off, so it's the same shape as the bracelet blank. And then I just sew that up with that same stitch, just catching the leather on the end and then going back onto the other side. So I'll close up that end first, kind of going back and forth, and then that end all closed up. You won't be able to see the stitches because that stitch goes back and forth and kind of embeds itself into the brain tan leather. And then once I get that end sewed up, then I'll go back down and start closing up this seam all the way on the inside. So just one side to the other, just catching that leather and making sure that seam is straight down the middle of the blank, because I'm kind of going to use that as a guide when I'm wrapping. When I wrap my beads around, use that seam as my guide and where I'm going to attach the rows of beads when I wrap. And I do that all the way around to the end and pull that pretty tight. You make sure that your strip is just that size. I snip off the other side, round it up to match the shape of the bracelet. And just close that other end up the same way as that I did on the other side. Just go back and forth, pulling that end in and tie that knot, kind of push it down into that seam so you can't see it. Snip that off. And your blank is covered and ready to be wrapped. So I wrapped it. I kind of guessed at the middle. Usually not always right, but so I attached, I went in from the side, so my knot will be on that side, but it will get covered up when I wrap it. But I want my needle in the middle of that seam. I put enough beads to wrap all the way around. I go through that seam to the side of the blank, come out that side, and wrap that row around the bracelet, pull them real tight. And when I come out on the side, it gives me about 4 beads to go back through. So I go back through those beads and pull that tight. So I'm out to start the next row, coming out. So I wrap all the way around that next row. When I do the single colors in design, I tack down each one. So I go through the seam to the side of the blank, come back out, pull that row tight, make sure it's real good and tight, and then go back through 4 beads. It's usually 4 beads. And I'm back to the seam. I'm back to where that row starts, so I can go on to the next one. So it just looks like a continuous wraparound, but I'm attaching each row because it's single. I'll go from the seam out, poke into the seam there. I'm poking on the other side, so I'm on the right hand side of the seam, so I'm pulling it in together as I'm coming out the side of the blank. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'll go back through those 4 beads and be in the spot to start the next row. So I'm basically just wrapping around and tacking it down on each row, pulling it real tight to make sure it stays secure. And enough beads on, wrap it around, and catch the right side of that seam. Right, that right side of that seam, push out to the side, pull that tight, go back through 4 beads, and you'll be ready to do the next. Was ready to do the next row. Wrap it around, enough beads to get to the center where the seam is. Right side of that seam to the side. Pull it out. Make sure it's nice and tight. So all your rows are matching up in the middle of that seam. As I said, I was going to use the seam for the guide, so that's kind of my guide to where I want each row to meet. Pull that tight. And then when I have the design, I'm going to do 3 rows of color. I put enough beads on to do those 3 rows and do the wrap. I'm going to pull it around, make sure it's real tight. You really have to adjust it. Make sure it's tight and the beads are setting where you want. Go through that seam, go out to the side, hold it real tight. Pull that through, and then I go back through those 4 beads, from the side of the blank back into the middle seam. So I'm going back through 4 beads and ending up in the middle to start that next row. So I wrapped that 3 times around. Make sure it's real tight. Next color, that beads to wrap around 3 times. Meets right there in the middle of the seam. Make sure it's real tight. Catch it on the right hand side of the seam. Go to the side. Pull it real tight. Make sure they're sitting flat and real tight. Pull real firm. And then go back through those 4 beads. Really need to adjust it. Make sure those rows are pulled real tight. Go back through 4 beads, or wherever that thread is coming up on the side, that's where you're going to go back to the middle of the seam and get it. Pull it real tight. Next color, wrap around 3 times. That meet in the middle. Line up with the seam, line it up where the other colors are lined up. Catch that seam, go to the side, pull it real tight, and go back through. Just going to continue that all the way around to the end. I don't take it all the way to the end. I leave a little bit of leather on the end, so I'm wrapping that all the way around. But when the last 3 rows, I go back and tack those down in the middle, right in the middle. Come up in the middle of that, and then go back through those last 3 rows, so that I'm tacking those down more than the other wrapped rows, so it will be more secure on the end. So the last 3 rows have been tacked down in the middle and on the side and the back seam. Tie that off, embed that knot in between those rows, burn off the end, hide it inside the rows of beads, and just complete that on the other side the same way. And there is a wrapped bracelet. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you were able to understand the whole thing. So you can join my group. Please answer all 3 questions or you'll not be added. Or you can stop by my website, www.quinwapawcreations.com. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time.